So, in the post-ban world, is Moon Stompy now one of the best decks? Or is it just way worse because it can no longer prey on Eldrazi? Let's find out. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for our first post-banning legacy video. And today I'd like to thank Brian for giving me a dealer's choice donation deck list, which I'm going to use to try out a powerful thing. Mono Red Stompy was explicitly called out alongside Oops All Spells as decks that are rising in terms of a metagame percentage, but are still acceptable in terms of a win rate. And this is what I have cooked up for a post-ban build. And it might not look all that much different from what we've been doing, but I put a surprising amount of thought into this. And I want to start by talking about this card. This is a card that I think is currently very central to the Legacy experience. This is a fantastic thing to main deck. This is a fantastic thing to sideboard. This is the sort of thing that I don't want to fucking see on the other side of the table because my red removal is not great at killing this card. So, in thinking about the construction of this deck for the post-banning world, the first thing that I wanted to do was take Magus of the Moon out of the deck and move it to the sideboard. You will see that there's still 4 of them in the main deck. We're going to get to that in a second. So my first thought was, let's go back to aggressive staples like a Goblin Rabblemaster that we can just play out on turn 1 and win the game with in a couple of combat steps. And then I realized, if a whole bunch of people are just going to be playing these Goyfs in their fair decks or as a sideboard juke, I don't want these goblin creature tokens that have to attack every turn. I don't want a large body getting in the way of this 2/2 base creature, and maybe Goblin Rabblemaster doesn't even have enough power to take it out if it just keeps eating all of the tokens. So I had 2 problems to solve. What do I do with the main deck slots? And then how do I beat that card in the post-sideboard games while also respecting the rest of the metagame? And my answer to this was to go back to unlicensed Hearse, which is still floating around in some of the builds, but was very, very popular for a while. When things like Uro or Murktide Regent, that is fair, slow, graveyard-oriented payoff, are popular, unlicensed Hearse is pretty solid. So I'm going to try playing a handful of these to deal with really all of the Goyfs. Nether Goyf is something that could come back a little bit as well. I also was thinking about putting Trinisphere back into the main deck where Magus of the Moon was. And then I was kind of thinking, well, what do I want to be doing right now? I want to be killing my opponents right now as quickly as possible. And if I play out a Trinisphere on turn 1, I'm not actually doing anything that explicitly ends the game. It just slows down the game. And playing out a Trinisphere when I don't need it means that I don't get to just rip through a bunch of cards with the One Ring and then go, oh, Broadside, play Fury, kill your board, throw Fury, boo, 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 air horns are blazing, everyone's mad. I don't get to do that stuff as regularly. And that's how I ended up on this build. I don't think you get to play Fairy Macabre. Oops All Spells dodged the ban bullet. I think that deck is going to be very, very popular in leagues, very popular in challenges as well, which I think means giving Leyline of the Void the nod over Fairy Macabre. Fairy Macabre tends to be better because you can draw it with the One Ring and then have it up as interaction afterwards, but I think I have to use a lot of my sideboard for the graveyard, unfortunately, with Oops being what it is. So then we're going to have a few answers to artifact-based decks. We are going to have a few answers to smaller creatures like Delver and the larger creatures like the Murktide Regents that we can't necessarily answer with our red base removal. So let's jump into it. Let's see how good this deck actually is. If you need some cards for the post-banning world, please check out toamagic.com. My promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order. Their customer service is great. I have been very, very happy with it. Their shipping is fast, and if it's not fast enough for you because you've got a big tournament coming up in this post-ban world, you can also expedite your shipping to get it even quicker. Let's battle. I'm so excited to play Legacy right now. Okay, my hand is probably a keep. We are on the draw here, so we can adapt what we're doing based on what my opponent does over there. All right, so we are going to be playing against an artifact-based deck of some kind, probably something along the lines of 8-cast, maybe something along the lines of Painter. All right, Emery trigger. Okay. So my Chalice is probably best on 0 in this matchup in all likelihood. I am not sure that I'm actually going to play a Magus of the Moon. It's weird because my opponent has blue from Mox Opal currently. All three of these are artifacts. Broadside. Hell yeah. Oh god. Yeah, okay. Wow, that made this hand better. Assuming my opponent does not have a counterspell. A counterspell is very good here. So send it. Opponent's at 18. I'm going to attempt to bait the counterspell first with a Chalice on 0. Then let's Fury. Pitch our red card. Nice. So we are going to deal 4 damage to Emery. Then Broadside. Target your face. Throw Fury. It is my turn 1. My opponent is at 9, and I have killed one of my opponent's creatures. Next turn, I'm going to play the One Ring. Are we winning? Did we do a good thing? Are we the bad guys? I'll let you decide. Opponent has an Ancient Tomb of their own. Arn the Great Creator. Junking my Chalice of the Void. This is acceptable. Pyrogoyf. Do we care about Karn? Or would I like to just deal 8 damage to my opponent's face? And then kill them whenever I resolve Pyrogoyf? I believe I'd like to deal 8 damage to my opponent's face. Send at face. Opponent is at 7. I will take 4, play the One Ring. I get protection from everything. Maybe if we click on it really hard. Nope. 6 damage at face. My opponent cannot tap Ancient Tomb anymore. A red mana source is lethal. Not answering Broadside is lethal. Ensnaring Bridge is perhaps not going to be safe to hide behind. Opponent would need 2 different creatures to serve as a blocker. That is an echoing truth. Okay. What's the follow-up play? LED. Are you Painter? Or are you just trying to set up for Mycosynth Lattice? Forgot the part where I'm a Luxac. You didn't account for that. Okay, is there any difference between playing these cards? Really? I guess this shows them the Pyrogoyf. Opponent's line is good, though. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Karn minuses. They put Mycosynth Lattice in play. If I don't have the red source this turn, I do lose. That's a great line to play towards. Maybe that's a reason to take out the Karn and try to play towards a longer game. All right. So my Blood Moon, Magus of the Moon type effects are not fantastic at denying mana. They do help against Urza's Saga specifically. My Chalices on 0 are good. They're a little less good on the draw. I think I'm going to hope that future games go something like this. I'm probably going to go down on these effects. I might do something like Trim a Fable, or I could even trim the One Ring, knowing that my opponent is a Karn deck now. So I want my Fiery Confluences. I want my Null Rods. Awkwardly, Unlicensed Hearse is like totally fine in the matchup as well. Let's go One Ring out. 8 artifact hate cards in. Magus of the Moon is dismemberable. That can come up. Chronosphere is reasonable. Dead Gone is not crazy. I think I'm going to go down 2 moon effects to play a couple of Dead Gones for Emery, and then not mess around with the Unlicensed Hearse that just gets shut off by Karn. Yeah. It's a little awkward. The Chrome Mox Null Rod combo. Seat, Bobble, both artifacts. Just throwing it out there. It's my opponent's own Chalice on 0. That's a statement. So they draw their card. I now don't get to Chrome Mox. I really need my land. I'm just going to play tapped Shatterskull Smashing Pass. Or do I just want to be able to Null Rod 2 turns in a row in case my opponent has Consign to Memory? What if I Chalice on 1? Or Hydroblast and Consign? Magic's hard. I'm just going to Null Rod. Let's make them have it. Oh shit. It just fucking worked. That was unexpected. Urza's Saga. Okay. So I am going to put another Null Rod into play here. And then maybe we draw a Blood Moon effect and we just clear this stuff out. Do we have Ancient Tomb? We have City of Traders. Same overall deal. Never didn't have it. There's some short-term awkwardness here. So All Moon. My opponent can make a 2-2. Or sorry, a 3-3. I forgot about Seat. Urza's Saga goes away. I now don't really need to blow up too many artifacts here. I think I'm just going to clear the board and not take a bunch of incidental damage in the short term. This is a little bit of a weird game, though. So now my opponent's city sticks around, but is not colored mana. We are likely to play Draw Go for quite some time. I need this as my own land here, despite the fact that I would love to blow up my opponent's city. Do I want to Chalice on one? I don't think so. That is another artifact land. All right, now I am up to 3 mana. I'm going to get rid of this stop. I don't need this one. Let's just pass the turn here. There is an Ancient Tomb, so my opponent has 2 colorless mana now. I am getting pretty close to just hard casting Fury as a dude that 4-turn clocks my opponent. Now, they do have to have something in their hand. Anticipating Fury, I'm going to cast a Chalice of the Void on X equals 1. And we're just going to cut off Hydroblast as an out to Fury. Still no play from the opponent. We are at... Ooh! Echo. Echo is spicy. It's not castable yet, but it's spicy. So that is another use for LED from my opponent's Karn. That is a 3rd seat. Absolutely brutal. Keep in mind that the treasure tokens that I'm making here are not real mana. Dismember? We've got a weird pause on my upkeep. No, negative. Okay. Yeah, we have some bad cards here. Chrome Mox in particular. Very, very bad. Pyrogoyf, very, very strong here. Fury, great as well. So let's get in for 2. Opponent is at 18. I think I would like to work towards Pyrogoyf Fable. I'm going to go ahead and Goyf here while the graveyard is still thick. It is possible that this will mean that my opponent is capable of echoing away the size of my Pyrogoyf, but I would rather have this to follow up a threat that my opponent drops. All right. Opponent's tapping out. They say, you got this, I'm too locked out. Yeah, no, this alone is a 2-turn clock, not counting the Fury as well. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I could say all sorts of great things about them, but I'm just going to point to this number. I have 488 deck lists stored on this site. That should give you a feel for how I feel about this website. And if you were to go to my profile, you could see all the deck lists that I'm messing around with, including my EDH decks, and you can even see some of the deck lists I record with before they hit the channel. Ooh. Okay, with a single mana here, this is just frankly not going to do it. The second hand is very, very reasonable. We will put back one of the 3 copies of Fury here. Broadside plus multiple Furies clocks real hard. Whether or not we play Magus of the Moon or Broadside on turn 2 is going to depend on what we see from the other side of the table here. That is a Thoughtseize. I will still have a decent turn 1 play no matter what. Opponent has taken my Magus. Lands? Depths? Depths. Revealing Dark Depths. Got it. Shatter Skull Smashing. So I am just trying to kill my opponent as quickly as possible here. So I think I am going to go ahead and play a Broadside, go to combat, send in for 2, bring my opponent to 16, Fury with Shatter Skull Smashing, 4 damage to nothing, Broadside, target your face, throw Fury at you for 7. Next turn, I attack my opponent 2/7 and repeat. Any red card is lethal. There is Dark Depths. There is Lotus Petal. That is a red card. Send in for 2. My opponent is at 7. Fury pitching Blood Moon. And my opponent dies on turn 3. I think we would have died on their turn 3. It's not 100% guaranteed here, but My opponent can float a green mana here, crop rotation for Dark Depths. Lotus Petal plus that is just 20 to my face. That was a high octane, very fast game. Note that we did do that through a Lotus Petal. Or sorry, through a Thoughtseize off Lotus Petal. The Depths matchup tends to be weird because the Blood Moon effects are excellent until they get you killed. So what can happen is your opponent can play... Sorry, you can play a Blood Moon effect. Your opponent can play a Dark Depths. It enters with 0 counters, and then they, both Sage you or Abrupt Decay or whatever your effect, and then all of a sudden they do the thing. I am probably interested in the card in my deck that can bounce a Merit Lage out of play. I am probably interested in Trinisphere as generic interaction. The One Ring is a way to fog a Merit Lage as well. Chalices are mid, but probably important enough to keep on 1 for things like crop rotation. The issue is that my opponent has other effects that do that sort of thing, not at 1 mana. At 2 mana, we could see the Sylvan Scrying that we saw. At 2 mana, there is Vampire Hexmage to potentially complete the combo in that capacity. What about Fable? Can I get away with cutting Fable here? Token gets walled by Vampire Hexmage or potentially Elvish Reclaimers as well. Kind of glue that holds decks like these together, and it gives you some really good end game. But I think we're hoping to just end the game, not get to the end game. So let's try this. I think this hand is just too slow, while Broadside plus Fury is really cool and really strong. I don't think doing that on turn 2 is worth keeping a 7 for. That does not interact with a Blood Moon in any way. The second hand has good cards, but not the ability to use them. You do need 3 mana for the relevant mode here. I will go to 5. 5's not great. 1, Imprint, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This has stable mana. I'm going to keep an underpowered 5 rather than hoping to just YOLO on a Blood Moon when I am on the draw. Alright, opponent just grabs a Spirit Guide. We've got Sylvan Scrying, getting the Dark Depths. You've got it. So now my Chalice of the Void is not super potent here. Hello, Fury. Unfortunately, can't pitch Chalice of the Void to you. So I think this is Chromux, Imprint, play land, go to Punchies, Punchies for 2. Opponent is at 18. Play Chalice of the Void on 0. Throw Chalice of the Void at my opponent's face. And maybe we luck out and we exactly race this. I am unfortunately punished for not keeping the Chalice in play. Well, opponent has Spirit Guide, right? That was what is revealed here. That is what is revealed here. Now I guess I don't play anything because I am dead on board. If I do this, my opponent just knows that they are alive still. Maybe I can get them to wait. Negative. I cannot. I am dead here. If I don't throw that for 2, I maybe get 1 more turn here. I throw this at my opponent. My opponent is at 7. Then I don't have another card for this. Or no, they would be at 9. It would take me 2 more turns to kill my opponent, which is probably unrealistic. Alright. Is Pyroglyph better or worse than Fable here? Pyroglyph is slow to get going. Like, sometimes I could Fable on 1 on a weaker draw and then try to loot into something relevant for 2. Maybe that's better. Maybe. Not played a lot of this matchup recently. This is fine. I am going to keep this. And I think I am playing a Chalice on 1 on turn 1 to play around Thoughtseize. And to a lesser extent, things like crop rotation. I'm going to deal an exceptional amount of damage to myself in the short term. It's a land and pass. So I could also Chalice on 0. So let's take 3. I will Blood Moon. I will now go ahead and Chalice on 0 so that Lotus Petal does not give my opponent colored mana. This does mean that if I draw my own artifact mana, I can't use it to put my next Blood Moon into play. I want the second Blood Moon in play so that this doesn't just cause me to lose to a Force of Vigor. So I am passing the turn here. If my opponent Force of Vigor's my Blood Moon. I get to Gone Merit Lage, which I currently cannot cast. Okay, fantastic. So, this thing happens, then I will take some more damage to attempt to remove this, and it works. Fantastic. We are playing Magic again. Thoughtseize. There's 2 moons. Note I am at 11, soon to be 9 from my own lens. So if anyone asks why you don't want to play against Delver as a Moon Stompy deck, this is the reason. It's turn 3. I've lost actual factual Blood Moon. Again, Magus of the Moon probably dies to some things like Dismember that my opponent could be packing. But my opponent took the Blood Moon, meaning they were more scared of Blood Moon, meaning I should probably play Blood Moon, even though this one is not a threat. Now, hopefully I will follow this up with Magus and then have 2 layers of different Blood Moon protection in play. Okay, that'll do. So bam, bam, bam. This is the... Okay, cool. So that was the Force of Vigor window. We're now through that. My opponent does not have functional mana. Ghost Quarter. I am going to go ahead and attack in with Magus of the Moon. I'm going to assume that that is safe enough. There are some absolutely wild things that could happen, like double Spirit Guide into Endurance that could punish that attack, but I don't think I am going to play around something that wild. And we'll just keep getting in there. It is Dismember? It is Dismember. Sure. These are still mountains. So my opponent had Dismember, which is why they took Blood Moon originally. I was correct in my assessment there. I am going to play this assuming that it will win me the game. I can Legend Rule it in a minute if things go wrong. There's Yavimaya. Everything's mountains. I'm at 8. Raw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So there's a Fable. I will make my 2/2. There's my more other Fable. Unless I draw a bad card, I am not looting through anything here. I will just kill my opponent in 3 turns with Goblin Shaman tokens, and then I want to Legend Rule this 1 ring after drawing a few more cards with it. Do I want to draw right now? Yeah, I'm fine with drawing right now, and then I can maybe loot through some things. Sundering Eruption. Don't think I want to cast that. Magus of the Moon, I do want to cast that. So 4 of these lands is for the 1 ring. Then I will have 1, 2, 3, 4 other mana. So I can play Magus and the 1 ring as things currently stand. This is fine. Let's loot through you. I don't think I need to give my opponent a basic here. Get rid of this. And I don't need those Chrome Moxen. Get rid of those. Another Blood Moon is fine. I will go to combat. Send it. We'll make some treasures. Opponent is at 8. I'm going to cast a new copy of the 1 ring. Keep this one. I will make a land drop. We'll use 1 of my treasures to now play a Magus of the Moon. And now we have Magus and Blood Moon protecting us from Dark Depths. I don't believe that I need to draw any more cards here. We have gotten the GG from our opponent here. And while it was a little tense there in game 2, we did get over the line. All right. Opening hand only has a single mana source here. This is not going to do it. Second hand is fine. We're not doing anything broken on turn 1, but I have a very wide range of things that I can do. I will be keeping this, and I'm going to get rid of 1 of the 2 MDFCs. I think I will get rid of Shatter Skull Smashing. Basic land. We riot. We riot. What are we playing against? Nadu Elves, maybe? Well, I was not expecting to play Ancient Tomb on turn 1. But here we are. It is in play. We'll see how much this matters. Basic Plains. Yeah, it's Nadu. 8 that for me. How am I winning? I can turn Noble Hierarch into another random card by throwing a Chrome Mox at it. I don't know if that's great. I am unsure that playing Broadside immediately leads to a win, and I can't mana deny my way through this. I think I am going to play Fable and try to work towards something being better than what is in hand here. Like, all 3 of these cards are not exactly good. Alright, it has resolved. Opponent is excited that they are in a video. Well, be excited, but don't kill me. I have so much to live for. So opponent just kind of naturally opened up on 2 basics versus my Blood Moon deck. That is unlucky for me. It is currently unclear how much work my Chalice is doing. I'm just gonna pop this out. I'm just gonna pop that out. Oh, Teferi Time Raveler. That's great. That just gets to eat my token. My opponent can attack me for 4 with the Exalted here. So let's go through Blood Moon. Let's get rid of Chrome Mox as well. This is a red spell that can be pitched to Fury. Fuck yeah! Let's go. So let's go Broadside. I think I'm going to go ahead and attack and kill Teferi. All right, that has happened. So now Fury pitching the red card that we specifically left in our hand. Let's nuke Nadu. That is worth giving my opponent a random card for. It is a Lush Portico. Then Nadu dies. Then Broadside. Target your face for 7. Okay. So next turn, I can throw a Spirit Guide for 5. My life total is very low. Don't do it. No. No. And a bonus land. I do not like that attack. Because that attack means that Nadu can't block anymore. Face? Seems like face. So we goif. I'm going to send that at face. Opponent is at 7. I will go to combat. Yeah, so that Noble Hierarch attack is relevant, right? So I can still dome my opponent for 6, but this 2 damage getting through is the difference between them being dead this turn and not. And I think it's unlikely that they kill me on the next swing, right? Like, even with another Exalted thing, I'm still at 7. They would need to find 3 more damage. Like a Bristly Bill and a Fetch Land doesn't do that. Okay, so what do we want to do versus Nadu combo? I think I am not going to mess around with the Blood Moon effects. I'm going to cut as many of those as I realistically can. My opponent could have some copies of Urza's Saga. My opponent certainly has some non-basic lands. But, like, the jig is up, Moon is coming. I am into kill Mana Dorks, despite the fact that there's a non-bow with Chalice here. But Chalice does stop some of the, like, Shuko, Nomads in Core type things. I think I'm going to accept this awkwardness. Fiery Confluence can be a board wipe in a pinch, and it can just go to face alongside things like Broadside and Pyroglyph to try to end the game. And then I think we start getting into sketchy card territory, where Null Rod stops one thing, not the other thing. Trinisphere is relatively slow and awkward on the draw. So I could keep some Moon effects to hedge against Urza's Saga and to keep my opponent's mana base honest, or I could play some awkward cards like Null Rod and Trinisphere that are just fine. This is a matchup where if I had space in my sideboard, Disruptor Flute would be very strong, and Red Elemental, Blast type cards that could counter Nadu would also be fine. I will keep Magus and cut Blood Moon. Magus attacks. Magus has points of power and toughness. Magus gets thrown by Broadside. Well, again, 4 of a kind, good in poker, less frequently good in Magic. I'm gonna keep it. I have to figure this out. This might be turn 1, Shatterskull and Chalice. Sorry, Shatterskull and Spirit Guide play Chalice. Turn 2, City of Traders, and 1 of Broadside or Magus. Or I could just intend on fully playing this game fair and keep double Broadside. I think I'm going to keep double Broadside and try to kill my opponent. And then sometimes I pivot this hand, I ignore my Chalice of the Void, and I just play a Broadside on 1, throw Chalice to kill a Mana Dork, and then just play second Broadside. Those attack for 4 per turn until I can eventually start throwing Broadside with Broadside for a kill. That is just land and pass. So, given land and pass, something like Swords to Plowshares is possible, something like Hydroblast is possible. I think I am going to go ahead and just play Chalice of the Void this turn. and make my opponent deal with that or ignore that, whatever. And then we can start broadsiding. This lets us, drawing this mountain lets us hold a Shatterskull Smashing for if we draw a Fury. Opponent has Basic Island, a Brainstorm. Chalice is in play. It is unclear how good that is, right? So like my opponent could just play Urza Saga this turn and then ignore Chalice. And there's potentially things like Green Sun's Zenith in this deck that just allow my opponent to put Mana Dorks in play around this Chalice. Chalice is Broadside food. I think we just start getting aggressive. By Broadside. I don't think I'm going to put Chalice on 0 into play immediately. I don't think I need to deal 2 damage to my opponent's face this turn. What if my opponent fetches Dryad Arbor? I would want to kill that. I don't think they're going to fetch a Dryad Arbor, though. I guess I could, in an emergency, throw a Chalice of the Void at a Dryad Arbor. Basic Forest, but no follow-up. So this can be all 3 basic lands. That is a Nadu. The One Ring. That is interesting. Do I want to kill this Nadu? So the 2-mana Shaman in core could result in my death if I don't remove Nadu. I kind of don't hate this. Cast another Broadside. Go to combat. Attack in for 4. Opponent is at 11. I can throw 7 direct damage at their face. I don't think I am going to do that. Instead, I'm going to cast a Chalice of the Void. I'm going to use a Broadside to throw Chalice of the Void at their face. I will then use the other Broadside to destroy Nadu. There's a Force of Will coming. That Force of Will is potentially going to answer my One Ring, which is unfortunate. While Karakas is there to protect a future Nadu. Green Sun? Green Sun. Outland Liberator, so this Chalice of the Void matters. Well, this will take Force of Will. There's a Hydroblast that we shut off. That's great. So, send in with Broadside. Opponent is at 6. Would I like to throw Chalice of the Void at their face for 2 damage? Or would I like them to use the mana for Outland Liberator? If the One Ring resolves, the damage doesn't actually matter. I think I force them to use their mana. Okay, so opponent used their mana on my turn instead of on their turn, meaning that I can throw Chalice of the Void at their face for 2 damage. I got the best of both worlds there. This is my opponent's chance to cast the Swords to Plowshares type cards that have probably been stranded in their hand this game. There is a Nomads. There is a Sylvan Safekeeper. The coast is clear. Float mana, pay some life, sack this, play the One Ring, draw a card, Chalice of the Void. That doesn't do anything yet. So this is my opponent's window. They could potentially get a Nadu right here. If they don't, they probably die on my next turn as I draw 3 cards, 2 from the One Ring, 1 from my draw step. It's not guaranteed, though. Surveil Land Junk's Noble Hierarch. It is stock up. That is a powerful card. It's slightly awkward timing. They can't deploy a Nadu immediately. There's a Delighted Halfling as a follow-up play. And we'll see if I get through my opponent's defenses this turn. Pyrogoyf is theoretical lethal, but I do not get the ability to cast it immediately. So I will go ahead and Chalice of the Void on 1 to play around my opponent's last card here being Swords to Plowshares. And then next turn, I do have Pyrogoyf. My opponent tapped. Oh no, they found Nadu. That is not great. My opponent is going to get a bajillion deactivations. So Force of Will is the big scary one. Alright, so a handful of clicks later, this is where we are at. My opponent has drawn a decent number of cards. I do know that they have a Force of Will plus blue card. So I am going to need to play something to bait my opponent and then try to resolve a Pyrogoyf afterwards. Yuri. Is that good enough to bait my opponent here? Probably not. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. It's kind of hard to double spell here. I think I'm going to try to just get a Force of Will out of hand and try to do something cool next turn. That is Force of Will putting my opponent to 2. My opponent can now do all this combo stuff one more time. My opponent has flipped a new Force of Will. They have Force of Vigored my Chalice. I think it is likely that I am just dead to a bunch of activations, and my opponent attacks me with their booties repeatedly. So that puts me to 2. Means that I am dead to my own 1 ring. That is unfortunate. I will draw to make sure that I don't have any Trixies here. Nothing that I can do at instant speed. So we will be forcing a game 3 here. My Trinispheres are much better when I am on the play. I might pitch 2 Magus and play 2 Trinispheres when I'm on the play. Like, I know my opponent has Force of Will, I know they have Force of Vigor, and I know they have a bunch of, like, Cantrip and other highly efficient cards. I am probably not going to miss 2 Magus of the Moon all that much. It does slightly lower my red count. Goif. Chromox, Imprint, Spirit Guide, Ancient Tomb, Spirit Guide, the One Ring. This is a Force of Will check hand that probably plays reasonable Magic if I fail the Force of Will check. So, Chromox, Imprint, Land, One Ring. Opponent passes the Force of Will check. It costs them a Nadu. And I would like to draw a land to get Pyrogoyf going. As a reminder, in case you're not super familiar with this, the Pyrogoyfs will see each other. The first one triggers once, then the second one triggers twice. And if you start copying them with Fable of the Mirrorbreaker or something like that afterwards, it gets sweet very, very quickly. There's a Delighted Halfling, which is not Goyf food this game, unfortunately, at least not immediately. So let's Chalice on 1 and see where this goes. That is Green Sun, or the Liberator again. That is very unfortunate. I could have put a Goyf under this to always be able to cast a small Pyrogoyf on turn 2. I do not believe that it was correct to. My opponent should target my Chromox here, not my Chalice of the Void. Yep, 13. Fiery Confluence is not what I need. I think there is a good chance that my deck loses to itself, but if I draw 2 lands, Goyf sees itself, Goyf sees both Goyfs, 3 Goyfs see each other. It will get silly, but I am missing land drops in an Ancient Tomb world. This was potentially also supposed to attack. I don't know the exact contents of my opponent's hand, but it feels like the closer you get to just ending this game immediately, it's a really big deal. We'll see if I can get myself out of this. There was no fetch after that Brainstorm. Yeah, so now it's attacking. I will take 4. I am at 6. That's a Green Sun for a Nadu. Obviously very bad. And my Goyfs are currently 3/4s. Yeah, I mean, I just don't win from here though, right? So I clear Nadu, I take 4, I go to 2. I can't tap this again. Yeah, I can't win from there. That is unfortunate. GG. Alright, my hand is a keep. How am I playing it? So I can go Ancient Tomb, Chromox, Spirit Guide, Blood Moon on 1. It is probably what I am going to do. Opponent says hello to YouTube. This is a bit of a high variance hand, where if the lock pieces don't line up well against my opponent, I am not killing quickly. And if the lock pieces are good, we basically win on the spot. I don't think I am going to play this on 0. That's a mountain. That's a 1 ring. That's fantastic. So let's make our land drop. I think I would like to shut off potential cantrips next. And hopefully we have generated a non-game. We've got blue fetch lands that we're shutting off. This is great. My opponent did not have Force of Will for either of these cards. That probably just means that the 1 ring will resolve. And it does. That's great. Cool. Yep. Honestly, fair. So all we know is that my opponent is playing blue. We could try to read into the lands and go, maybe they are Esper. I think that is a stretch. Blue fetch lands are very generic. So the cool thing about playing this deck is that you can often, and apologies if you get some of this thunder, it is about to storm something wicked. Anyway, you can often just resubmit the game 1 deck and just power through and kill your opponent due to the power of like Goyf and Broadside and like chucking Fury at your opponent's face. and if your deck isn't perfect, so what? I think I am going to go down 2 Magus of the Moon for 2 Trinisphere. Just generically, Trinisphere is pretty okay versus blue decks. I am thinking about cutting 2 more for 2 Unlicensed Hearse. Blue decks tend to do a little something with the graveyard, be that Delve or Arrows or Reanimates or Mystic Sanctuaries. Unlicensed Hearse probably wouldn't be too bad. But if my opponent is playing a multicolored control deck or a multicolored Delver deck, there is a good chance that the Moon effects just win me a game like they just did. So I think I'm going to kind of do this conservatively here. I don't know how good Fury is going to be without seeing more of my opponent's deck. This hand is not exciting, but I am probably going to keep it. I just have mana and cards. Are they the cards that I want? Maybe not exactly. Are they cards that I can play immediately? Maybe also no. But this hand probably does stuff. Right, my opponent kept their 6. And it's just passing the turn. Oh, Chrome Mox is very good. Let's see if my opponent wants to daze that. Negative. And I'll get rid of this. And I'll get rid of this. This is potential daze target number 2 for my opponent. It is a Force of Will pitching Brainstorm. We still don't really know what my opponent is doing. My opponent says no mulligan from mono red is scary. It is Wasteland. Sure. That makes me... Oh, shit! You're just gonna let me keep my fucking City of Traders? Let's fucking go! Okay, what does that mean? Does that mean Bowmaster? If it's Bowmaster, playing the One Ring directly into it is a little awkward. But I think I accept because I can Fury pitching Pyroglyph afterwards. Daze is a card that exists. Play the One Ring. It's movement. Do I have the correct read on Bowmaster? No, I do not. So consign? Brainstorm. Resolves. Shit. It resolved. Nice. Broadside is cool. Yeah, so I very much liked the part where I didn't get Wastelanded and I got to resolve the One Ring. Like, my City of Traders, yes, is in the graveyard here, but resolving this is such huge game. Null Rod. Ooh, I am unhappy about that. That's very strong. And just got stronger. Alright, we're chilling. So at this point, my opponent is very, very likely to win this game, but I need to figure out what deck they're playing, so I am going to let them kill me. It's that jerk, who is currently a 3-4. Very, very big deal that it is a 3-4 specifically here. That means Fury can still kill it. Fury will still be in play when the trigger resolves. We'll pitch the 4-drop here. So 4 damage. With 1 more mana, Broadside also comes down here, but Nullrod is doing work. And getting the attack in for 9 total damage would be hot. Tamiyo. Okay. Tamiyo, Nullrod. Known combo. Don't look, everyone. Don't look. Broadside is in play. Send it. Opponent is at 15. Now I've got some choices. I can throw the One Ring at face and ignore Tamiyo, or just throw One Ring at Tamiyo, or do none of that and just throw Chrome Mox at my opponent's face, or play this Chrome Mox and throw that Chrome Mox at my opponent's face. The Tamiyo can still flip and turn into a Planeswalker that is slightly annoying. Gonna play hyper conservatively here. I will regret that if my opponent slams a Goyf this turn. Brainstorm. What is going on outside? We've got a fetch to follow up the Brainstorm. A Fatal Push. And we're chilling. Trinisphere is not what I am looking to draw at this stage of the game. I believe that my opponent is currently favored. They have cantrips to help select their draw. I don't. Thoughtseize is fine. I think you take Trinisphere. Opponent takes the One Ring. I guess it's a turn of protection in the very late game and can be thrown by a Broadside. I mean, not that Trinisphere also can be thrown by Broadside, to be fair. I think it's Murktide. It is. It's an 8/8 Murktide. Alright, without Dead Gone here, I don't think I am winning from this board now. So this sort of deck is where we want Unlicensed Hearse. We probably want Unlicensed Hearse and Dead Gone here. My generic Trinispheres are okay. My moon effects are not the strongest. I might board out Blood Moon or board down on Blood Moon and keep Magus. Magus attacks. Blood Moon's real sticky if it gets in play, though, and Magus isn't. I already have 2 Magus in the board. Let's get rid of the remaining copies of Magus. And then I have to decide what I want to do regarding the Blood Moons. I'll keep a couple of Blood Moons on the play. Blood Moon and Trinisphere kind of do similar jobs in that they take the first counterspell that my opponent has. This is fine. This is not a fast hand. This is similar to the last one in that this is a resilient hand. I'm not getting wastelanded out of this game. Unlicensed Hearse is strong, although slightly awkward with Pyrogoyf. So my goal is play Unlicensed Hearse, bait interaction, play a 1 ring, it gets countered, stick a 1 ring, win. And we can see how my opponent feels about this. Opponent took my Hearse, which is my early game play. That makes sense. I'm going to save this as a sneaky play around Days next turn card. I don't think I want to play City and just jam immediately. If I were the opponent leading on Underground Sea, I would not keep a hand that has Thoughtseize as my first piece of interaction. I would be wanting to have a counterspell there, unless I also have a basic land or 2 in my hand already. Ooh, that is good. I think I'm just going to play the 1 ring, though. That is consigned to memory. So we'll trade evenly there, although my opponent does it in a much more mana-efficient way than I did. Wasteland is very good for my opponent. Fury is not a great draw for me. First is good enough to get my opponent to brainstorm in response. A second brainstorm in response. They do not like this. This only digs them 1 card deeper. Looking at our Murktide Regent count, I probably need to eat from the graveyard immediately. So let's eat a sorcery and an instant, and then pass. This is so much more pleasant to play against than Blue-Black Reanimator. Throwing it out there. Another Wasteland. Tamiyo. I can eat that with a Fury or a Pyrogoyf. Sundering Eruption. I can't do everything here, right? So I can play Sundering Eruption and use Spirit Guide to cast Pyrogoyf, in which case I don't have a red pitch card for Fury. Yeah, so I have to make a choice here. Unless I do this, Fury, pitch Pyrogoyf, then I have 4 mana for the 1 ring. That seems fine. So yeah, and this is potentially good enough to eat something like a Force of Will. Potentially. So there was no consign to memory for the Fury. The Fury trigger specifically. Oh, we got the 1 ring. Nice. Let's Unlicensed Hearse. Eat 2 brainstorms immediately. Then I think I'll pass turn. Draw in their upkeep. This is in respect of Orcish Bowmasters. It is Petty Theft. So then I will draw a card right now. Glad that I waited. We can try to resolve this again in a minute, although I might get wastelanded. Alright, there is the Wasteland. That is another 1 ring. That's not what I want. But my opponent's not making forward progress here either, so this is hopefully fine. We're not to graveyard counts yet, where I immediately need to tap Unlicensed Hearse to play around something like Murktide Regent, so this is fine. It's got some good traditional value-oriented cards over there, and I'll feast a little bit on their graveyard. The Unlicensed Hearse is not getting through Baleful Strix in the short to medium term, but when this eventually attacks, it will probably be attacking for roughly half of my opponent's life total at a time. Fuck. Kaito. That's a problem card. So my opponent is going to get a Planeswalker and start accruing value with it, and they can also just redeploy Baleful Strix. Opponent is just plussing, trying to get Kaito to a higher loyalty count, and I'll just eat some stuff. Alright, Spirit Guide. Kaito at 5 loyalty can die to an Unlicensed Hearse attack. So there's Broadside. This is a fantastic Force of Will. My opponent does not have it. So Crew, tapping down Broadside. 8/8. We're not messing around with that Planeswalker. Get out of here. Alright. Problem solved. Baleful Strix coming back means that this isn't doing everything, and Broadside might die. Bowmaster also probably in my opponent's deck and also a concern. City of Traders would slap as a draw. Alright, Strix comes back. Was there a reason to fetch? I wasn't paying attention to what Kaito did. Fatal Push. Fatal Push is the reason to fetch. Got it. And Tamio. Seems good. That was literally the card that I wanted to draw. That was literally the card that I wanted. That is incredible. Alright, so Fury. Pitch, Baleful Strix. Sorry, pitch, Blood Moon. So, I get to kill both of my opponent's creatures. And while I am doing this, I can also just hit my opponent for a large number. Literally half of their life total. I think we are not using this to check the graveyard right now. I think this goes Paunch. Send at face. 8. My opponent's Murktide Regent that they could play would be small and would not outsize unlicensed Hearse. You have to keep in mind that this could be coming in the not too distant future. Okay, there is Murktide Regent, so we were successfully checking that card for a while. My opponent has just ended up with a 4/4 here. I don't have a good play this turn. I get punched for 7 and then potentially die. I would like to top deck another Fury, I suppose. So here's the 7 on board. I'm at 7. Eat your land. Note, I could eat 2 cards out of my own graveyard, but it's already lethal. That is a mountain. I can cast a Blood Moon and then die. That is unfortunate. That game was playing out very well for us as a whole, but we got wastelanded a couple of times and I could not keep casting my spells. Okay, we have a fine hand. This hand is a keep. Notably, the hands where we're just killing our opponents are going way better than the hands where I am trying to lock my opponent out. Opponent is just passing the turn here. With this much mana, I might just Chalice of the Void on 1 around days off of City of Traders. If I play a Moon effect, my opponent can just fetch a basic in response. I don't know, maybe I just shove Moon effects 2 turns in a row here, though. Let the first one get dazed, try to resolve the second one. That's reasonable. You can also try to have more stable mana by just going Mountain Spirit Guide Chalice. I'm going to shove a Moon and try to make it so that my opponent cannot have both of their colors if they have 2 basics in their deck. That is a Force of Negation. Sure. Game 1 Force of Negation has me thinking that this is going to be some slower control deck like Up the Beanstalk. So my opponent sat there thinking on my turn for like 2 minutes. I am not sure if they are lagging or if they had some difficult decision or what. Spirit Guide. I think I Chalice this turn so that a Magus can't be like fatal pushed. I think it's fine to throw away a land as well. I could try to get super cute and try to do both this turn by going City, City, and Spirit Guide. I think playing slightly more conservatively around a Daze and potentially Spell Pierce as well is fine. That is not a basic land. That is a Tundra. My Chalice is in play. I don't know if I should be excited about that yet. Alright, so I think my call that this was going to be some like multicolored Up the Beanstalk deck was correct. Leyline Binding can mean that my Chalices and Maguses and stuff are just easily answerable. My opponent doesn't have many cards though, so this is a really, really big moment. Does it resolve, and does it make it through the turn? That is Leyline Binding in response to Magus? Not after Magus has resolved? Really? Did you just... Okay. So you just have Swords to Plowshares? I'm going to shove another Magus. Is there any wild-ass flash creature that could happen here? It's another Leyline Binding. So this could have been done better, right? So with this Magus of the Moon on the stack, you remove this one, and then you get a chance to draw a counterspell to counter this one. Just draw basic island. Sure. Sure. Alright, that is a bounce on Leyline Binding, which returns a Chalice to play. So now my opponent can potentially get rid of this Magus of the Moon. But I get to kill Teferi. And then we are absolutely just playing Simian Spirit Guide as a threat here. This Chrome Mox is going to sit in my hand to be pitched to something like a Fable of the Mirror Breaker later on. Opponent has an Uro coming, which is a problem. I expect that I have probably lost this game. Cards like the One Ring can bail me out. A Life from the Loam. Sure, so you can attack my City of Traders. That's fine. Rainstorm. They could dredge Life from the Loam off this if they wanted. Otherwise, they can just put back those lands and then fetch. And it is a very good value engine. All right, they're going for the Wasteland. They can also just dredge over the cards they don't like. One Ring is exactly the sort of card that I want. So hopefully my opponent farts around with Life from the Loam for a little while, and then I stick a One Ring. Yeah, so we see them dredging over a bunch of lands there. So the fear here is that Uro goes unchecked. And Uro with Life from the Loam plus up the Beanstalk will probably be insurmountable. It might be as simple as I draw a land this turn or I lose. That is another up the Beanstalk. That is a Chalice. That's no good. While I'm not technically dead here, I think I'm going to respect my time. I think this game is over. Okay, Unlicensed Hearse is exactly for these sorts of matchups. My Blood Moon effects are fine. My Chalices aren't very good. I think I'm going to get rid of Chalices for Unlicensed Hearse, and then we can think about maybe filling with some of these cards. It is unclear how good Fury is as well. They've mostly seen larger creatures. Fury can do some things like finish off Teferis, or potentially some other value things like Tamiyo that are in there. Fury notably does not kill Uro. I think I'm going to try to play 2 Trinispheres here, trim 1 Fury. And we're going to try to throw Haymakers at my opponent and then stick a One Ring. That's the pattern we want. This hand is fine. It's not doing anything on turn 1. I think I need to be able to play City of Traders on turn 2. But I have a couple of things that I can play as bait before I start trying to resolve my cards that actually matter. Oddly, it is Life from the Loam Wasteland that is scariest against this hand. Hey, there's Tamiyo that I mentioned. So let's see if we can stick a Trinisphere. The answer is probably no. Correct. Force pitching Force. I don't care about these clues in the short term. Yuri. If I want to do that, I kind of need to do it right now. There's like Broadside Fury as a thing that can happen. I really want to play Trinisphere this turn. Brainstorm is awkward. I'm going to Fury pitch Spirit Guide and keep the extra land in case I get Wastelanded. It's awkward that I can't like do this after Trinisphere for protection. Okay, Tamiyo is gone. Let's now see how my opponent feels about the Trinisphere. It's in play. My opponent is missing land drops. I am going to steamroll them. They chose to pitch a Force of Negation, 2 Force of Negation. Yeah, so Magus, bonus land. Now you have to hit one of your 2 or 3 basics to continue to play Magic. I think this is just done. I'll be lazy with my sequencing here. Do I want to play this land? I think I want to loot through it. Send it. 2. Opponent can crack their clue. All right, they did have a basic plains. I will loot through 2 of these lands here. Another Fable is fine. Am I into that? This is 3 mana. This is 4 mana, 5 mana. I can't do both this turn. I will play another Fable and loot through this Ancient Tomb then. Sometimes my opponent casts something like a Swords to Plowshares this turn. So that's 14. Cast Fable. Resolves. Again, I'll hold Ancient Tomb. It is a Swords on the Magus. So my opponent's mana is back online, but their efficiency is rough with the Trinisphere in play. I also can... I just naturally drew another basic too. Sure. Going for Trinisphere out of play. So 1 Saga turns into a dude. 2nd Saga happens. There's potentially interaction coming. I think I'm going to loot through both lands. Yuri. Yuri is cool. Let's see what's going on. Let's cast Trinisphere. I think it is very easy to lose this one if I get too excited and try to go all in on, like, cool Broadside lines immediately. That is a Force of Will, junking an Uro. I only have 2 mana in my main phase here. I think I'm going to attack and kill Teferi, and then send 2 at face, making 2 treasures. I don't think I need to play any more cards this turn. I can play everything next turn, and then hopefully get cool with Reflection of Kiki Jiki as well. Up the Beanstalk is fine. Now a Ponder. Opponent is potentially going to need some Solitude-like free interaction here. There's another Up the Beanstalk. Pyrogoyf. So if I resolve a spell, I'm going to win. I resolved a spell. This'll do. Yep. So do I want the extra Fury when I'm on the draw here? I could go down a single piece of mana if I wanted to. I'm gonna call this good. This is incredibly awkward. I think I'm going to keep it. I would really like to draw a real land. Sure. That is a Blood Moon. Alright. From Mox. Imprint Fable. From Mox. Imprint Fury. Volcanic Fissure. Yes. And now I start casting these things. Magus does not eat Force of Negation. I'm going to cast Magus first. That is Force of Will, pitching a Consign to Memory. So you can see by the hand that I have chosen to keep and the things that I have chosen to imprint that I am attempting to win this game by locking my opponent out of casting cards, and then we'll deal with this later. That is fully my plan. There's a Volk, which means my opponent gets 1 redraw to help them stop Blood Moon. And I have drawn yet another one. Crack the Clue. Blood Moon has resolved. That means that these aren't great. But I was all for having 3 tries to stop this bullshit. You get your clue. I am absolutely going to put redundant copies into play because my opponent has shown me Leyline Bindings and such. And my opponent can work towards ultimating this Planeswalker. This game is so much easier if I don't have double Chrome Mox and don't have to, like, choose between enabling my mana and furying the Tamiyo. Damn deck. Okay, what about 2? Is 2 in play enough? Let's say 2 in play is enough. Now my opponent can just -2 pick this Force of Will back up. And they do. So I would like to play 2 spells at the same time since I know that my opponent has Force of Will. So I'm going to continue to make land drops. And Tamiyo will just continue to plus. These are not like the 2 spells that I would pick, but this is the 2 spells that I've got. This one might not be good enough to Force of Will. My opponent might let this one resolve, and they do. In which case I don't cast Magus directly into Force. Or do I? Maybe I do, since I can then eat the Force with Hearse and it won't come back again. Alright. Okay, that was good enough. So I will eat that Force. Tamiyo pluses. I maybe don't eat the Force immediately, though. I maybe eat both of my copies of Magus of the Moon here, so that I have 2 cards under this, so I can potentially attack Tamiyo if I resolve another card. Well, that is absolutely the sort of thing that I want to draw at this point of the game. Does it resolve? No. Rough. Tamiyo ultimate's at 7, so this next draw is a big one for me. If I resolve any card, I can keep this Tamiyo from ultimating, and I have seen most of my opponent's Force of Wills. I think I've seen 3 of the 4. Hell yeah. You have the last one. Oh, okay. So there's no colored mana here. If I attack with Broadside, I can always throw Unlicensed Hearse if something goes wrong, but this just attacks 4 more. I think I am into attacking 4 more. So we will send at Tamiyo. My stuff gets 1 smaller. This hits Tamiyo for 3. My opponent doesn't have anything in graveyard right now. Tamiyo pluses again. This is tilting in my favor. That's just another mountain. This is great, because now I can send in with both. I can use this to crew Unlicensed Hearse. So we will send both at Tamiyo. It'll get smaller. Tamiyo goes down to 2. Then Broadside, target Tamiyo. We will throw one of these, finish it off. Now I'm in good shape. Now my opponent is locked out while I, am going to pummel them to death, and Fable is coming. Fable can loot me through these bad cards here. And we put up a positive finish in the league. Although, honestly, we had to work for it today. All right, so what did we learn in our first league of the post-ban world? A couple of things. Number one, the blue-black tempo-y deck that we played against was a reasonable legacy deck, but did not feel oppressive. Very happy to see that from blue-black decks. Number two, this deck felt fine. There are some starts that this deck is capable of that are absolutely insane. The lock pieces today, it felt like my opponents were capable of slipping through. So my lock pieces weren't the best versus Nadu, for example. My multicolored control opponent in the final round, although we did beat them, had a decent agency in taking the Chalices and the Maguses and the Blood Moons out of play. It felt like there was appropriate counterplay to what I was doing. Some of my cards, like the One Ring, were still hit by Consign to Memory, which, despite the fact that it gets worse with Sowing Mycospawn gone, is still a very reasonable sideboard cards for blue decks. I really liked the unlicensed hearses that were in the sideboard. I am happy that I did those. We did run into some hiccups throughout the league a few times where, like, we got null rotted and then our One Rings and Chrome Moxen didn't work, but like that's a card we're playing ourselves. That is going to happen sometimes. Generally speaking, this feels powerful. This feels proactive. It feels like sometimes your opponents need to have answers in about the first 3 turns, maybe multiple answers, or they are going to die. It does not feel like this is over the line. It feels good. I would be comfortable trying something similar to this again. As we gather more data about where the format is going, we can decide, like, is this 2 Magus main? Is this no Magus main? Is this 2 Magus side? Like, you can get a little bit of wiggle room there. It would not surprise me if you end up wanting to play Unlicensed Hearse in the main. I don't like a bunch of the other aggressive options. Screaming Nemesis has been kind of mid. Goblin Rabblemaster doesn't feel great into Goyfs. But generally speaking, thumbs up. Deck feels good. Let me know what you're thinking about the format in your initial couple of games with it or leagues with it down in the comments below. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya!